and welcome back to another episode of The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, the show where I, the curator, discuss my personal favorite show of all time, personal favorite franchise of all time, Doctor Who. And today we have a special guest making his debut on this show, my new sonic screwdriver. So this is the fourth Doctor, the Tom Baker sonic screwdriver. Came in the mail literally yesterday, and I just decided to debut it on this show because where's my other screwdriver? Yeah, I felt like the Matt Smith one was getting kind of old and noisy. So this is going to be my new screwdriver for the show going forward. Eventually, one day I'll get all the sonic screwdrivers and feature a different one every episode because I like to do stuff like that. Now, speaking of characters making their debut on this show, here's a guy I wanted to work with on this show for many months, almost 8 years, many months. I tried to get him on the show. It looked as though I was going to have him as a guest twice, unfortunately, life got in the way and he had to drop out. But I'm finally excited that I finally have this guy on this show today. The creator of the channel, our Lord and Savior, and most importantly, the guy who writes my paychecks, Frenchie. How are you doing, Mr. French?
I'm good. I got outshined by a screwdriver, though, apparently.
Well, I mean, he was he was a lot closer to this square. So
it's funny. I would have thought that it would have been a she.
He identifies as a he, and that is how he wishes to continue his life.
Well, it's my pleasure to be on, my friend. Thank you very much for having me and getting me my very restricted time on my busy day today. But it's my pleasure to talk a bit of Doctor Who and Time Lords, my friend.
And speaking of people who I love talking Doctor Who with, the first time I had this guy on this show, we ended up talking about Doctor Who for 5.5 hours. But hopefully it won't go this long this time because it's Mr. Chris Ingle. How are you doing, my friend?
I am doing well, Mr. Curator, sir.
Let me just do this because I don't know, it feels better when this is organized this way. Now, obviously, as we do every week on this show, we are starting us off with the birthday section of the week. Now, obviously, we're going to be recovering birthdays for people from the 21st all the way to the 27th. However, first, I have to correct a mistake that I made last week because I completely forgot that on the 20th, yeah, and here we go. We haven't even started and the messages start popping in. On the 20th, Anjali Mohindra. She played the character of Rani Chandra in the Doctor Who spin-off show, the Sarah Jane Adventures. She played a bunch of other characters on Big Finish. It seems like every time, for a while at least, every time they needed a Indian character or character of Indian descent, they just brought her in. And she played like 50 different Indian characters on Big Finish. But she's also getting her own spin-off show on Big Finish called Rani Chandra Takes on the World, that I believe they released their first artwork a couple of days ago. So that's really interesting to check out. On the 21st, now we're getting into the people from this week specifically. On the 21st, we have Mr. Sean Dingwall. Sean Dingwall obviously played the character of Pete Tyler in the Russell T Davies era, the father of Rose Tyler, and he also reprised the role on the Rose Tyler spin-off show on Big Finish, Rose Tyler, The Dimension Canon. On the 22nd, we have Mr. Nigel Planner. This is a really funny one because he played a character called Vorgenson. Does anyone know where this character was from?
Nope.
Organson?
Vorgenson.
He was probably in something. Wasn't it the monster one?
Which monster?
Yeah, there's a lot of monster
ones. You know what? Just go on. I have no idea.
So have you guys ever watched the classic Doctor Who episode Carnival of Monsters.
Which Doctor?
It was the third Doctor, where they were in the miniaturized mini scope, where they kept walking from one monster.
Oh, I think deep down, it's been a while, but yeah, I think I did.
Yeah, the guy that dresses up really crazy. The guy was named Vorg, and a few years ago, on the 50th anniversary, as a matter of fact, they did a Doctor Who live. They brought this guy to play a character called Vorgenson, literally the son of Vorg. Vorgenson. Like, of all the characters to add lore to, they chose this guy.
I just looked it up. That's why I remembered it. The Monsters Are Coming. That's what it's called.
He basically wants revenge on the 11th Doctor for what the third Doctor did to his father. And it just was so stupid and funny and ridiculous. I felt like I had to include it on here. Now, on the 23rd, we have the lovely Miss Emilia Jones. Obviously, she played the character Mary in The Rings of Akaten, who also sang the long song during that episode. Also on the 23rd, we have Mr. Gary Davis, co-creator of the Cybermen. He was also a script editor and writer on a lot of the classic black and white Doctor Who episodes. On the 24th, Mr. Ben Miller, who played the Sheriff of Nottingham in the Robin Hood episode during Capaldi's era, Robot of Sherwood. On the 24th, also on the 24th, Mr. David Gooderson, who played Davros in Destiny of the Daleks, as well as a bunch of other characters on Big Finish. Side note, my least favorite interpretation of Davros, but that's beside the point. On the 25th, we have Mr. George Harrison. Yes, that George Harrison from the Beatles. The Beatles did have a minor, subtle cameo in the William Hartnell episode The Chase, which has since been removed from the re-releases on BritBox for presumably bullshit-related reasons. But you know what? It's George Harrison, so we got to give him some credit, right? Also on the 25th, the lovely Miss Sadie Miller, Elizabeth Sladen's daughter, the daughter of Sarah Jane Smith, who also played several characters on Big Finish, including the role popularized by her mother, Sarah Jane Smith, in a wide variety of Big Finish roles. On the 26th, Miss Ingrid Oliver, who played the character of Petronella Osgood in the 50th anniversary special. She also came back to reprise the role of Osgood in various different episodes and Big Finish releases. On the 26th, still sticking with the 26th, Mr. Tony Selby, who played a pseudo-companion, Sabalom Glitz, in the 6th Doctor era and the 7th Doctor era. On the 27th, let me just get this name right, Tom Chadbone. He played a beloved 4th Doctor character, Duggan, in the highly popular City of Death, and he also played several different other characters all throughout Big Finish as well. And finally, wrapping up one of the longest birthday sections we've ever had, Mr. Derek Ware on the 27th. He was a choreographer and fight arranger on a number of Doctor Who episodes, ranging from the first Doctor all the way up to the third Doctor, and he also played random characters on all kinds of episodes, which featured a large army, and there needed someone to play a henchman on all of these episodes. So, for the long list of people we had today, thank you all. We quite literally could not do this without you. Now, transitioning into the realm of the Time Lords of Gallifrey, there are also several people we couldn't have done this show without, and also several people we probably wish we could do the show without. And, some people we could have skipped. Now, just wanted to let you guys know, just throw out a number. If you actually go on the Doctor Who wiki page and type Time Lord, okay, how many Time Lords do you think there are?
Well, I'm not gonna go to wiki. I'm gonna try to guess. We're talking about the old and new.
All across Doctor Who media.
Yeah, and the other ones they appear more often. 124.
Okay, that's an interesting guess. Mr. Ingle.
Oh, 538 and a half. Jenny should be half-time Lord.
Okay, that's an interesting way to rationalize this. Do you want to know the actual number?
What
Probably
is the
under
actual
100.
number?
875.
I was closer. Do I win the daily double?
Uh, sure. Whatever that is. Yeah.
It's a game show
So
reference.
yeah, I kind of figured that, but
Yeah.
Jeopardy?
I'm
A little bit of Jeopardy, a little bit
Yeah.
of a Price is Right. Anyway, continue.
so I actually in research for this episode today, I actually went and read pretty much all of their wiki pages and wiki entries. I didn't read all of them, obviously, but I read as many as I could, and I just tried to filter some of them. Like I only tried to focus on the really important ones, because I didn't want this to be a 10-hour show naturally.
Right.
So the final number I ended up settling on is 55. Okay, so we've got 55 different Time Lords to talk about. You would not believe, and trust me on this, you would not believe who actually ended up being number 42. Does
So,
anyone want to
so
guess?
50. You're saying we got less than 2 hours to do 55 Time Lords?
Let's
Yeah.
push on.
Yeah, no pressure, right? And you know something else? I'm an idiot. I clearly goofed up because I forgot to make the tier list before we went in live. So I'm doing it right now. That's why I'm trying to stall for time.
You see,
No,
this always happens when I go into a show. Apparently, I destabilize everyone for some reason. So,
yeah. Well, you can rest assured knowing that it's squarely on me. So before we, while I try to scramble this tier list, kind of last minute, can anyone tell me who their favorite Time Lord is, not named the Doctor? Let's go with that one. And all Time Lords count, even half Time Lords, like you mentioned.
I think one of the most fascinating to me has been recent, and it's probably Tecteun. Just this history of that Tecteun is where it all started, where it all came from. She was technically the first Time Lord. And that, or I say she, obviously, she regenerated multiple times. But they were very fascinating in the with the introduction in Jodie Whittaker's time, and then during Flux to get to see more of Tecteun. Unfortunately, we will no longer have Tecteun. Makes me kind of sad because there are lots of possibilities there. Thanks so much to our true villains of that series. But yeah, no, Tecteun is fascinating. Not a good character. Good, I mean good or bad. Evil. She's definitely not good like the Doctor is, but fascinating nonetheless.
And my answer might be boring, but I gotta go to classic, the Master.
Yeah.
The Master has been there since the beginning. Some better, some worse portrayals, but the Master has always been the arch enemy. So,
but there are so many others that really fit in here really well that are awesome characters that we see. Rassilon, I always love seeing Rassilon. The Valyard.
I only chose Master to be honest because I have the memory of a goldfish. I can't remember no one else's names. Okay.
No, it is what it is, and you know what? Hey, I'm gonna throw it in there, even though she wasn't Gallifreyan. River Song, she's an honorary Time Lord, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I mean, she is human plus Time Lord, obviously.
Yeah.
Now, now that I finally have the list ready, we might. Normally, what I do is I have clever names for all the tiers, but because I had to literally make it on the fly because I forgot, I might have to come up with names on the fly while we do the show. But you know what? That's how the Doctor operates. He just making it up as he goes along. Now, obviously, I will be like I said. Like I said off camera, I do have some notes. Should we need them? And we will be mentioning a lot of different Time Lord terms, like the Time Lord chapters, the chapters of Gallifrey and the old houses. For a refresher, these are what the Time Lord chapters sort of look like. They're basically just like the houses of Hogwarts, but for Time Lords, and they continue, they stay in their houses, their respective houses, for the remainder of their lifetimes. And also, I will be mentioning the name CIA a lot. CIA is just an acronym for the Celestial Intervention Agency. So, a Time Lord organization. So, don't get confused with the actual real world CIA. Now, speaking of CIA, first Time Lord we gotta talk about is actually a member of the CIA, Adelphi. One of the first few Time Lords we actually do get to see in the show. Yes, so he is, first of all, he was one of the tribunal that presided over the Warlord's trial, as well as the second Doctor's trial in the War Games. He was one of the Time Lords that actually saw the Doctor's point of view. He also then later came back in the third Doctor's story, Terror of the Autons, to inform the third Doctor of the Master. The Master is on Earth. And he also played a part in the Doomsday Weapon affair in the episode Colony in Space. Now, here's something interesting. First of all, Archelian chapter, which, gotta mention the chapters for this guy. He was a counselor of Pandad the Fourth, and he's really where it gets complicated here. He was the one who suggested to release the Master from the Time Lord super prison Shada, so that the Doctor would be busy during his time on Earth. Okay, so like the Doctor is in exile on Earth in either the 70s or 80s, depends on who you ask. This guy was like, to make sure he doesn't get bored, let's just release the most dangerous criminal that our race has ever produced and unleash him onto the Earth and see how the Doctor handles it.
So he's a moron.
Yeah, what the hell, man?
Seriously. Okay, so that is either for me D or S. Either you're so goddamn bad that you go in D, or you're so goddamn stupid it makes for an amazing episode. So it's either S or D. There's no middle for me.
I don't know enough about this guy, other than kind of the basics, but this guy is part of the tribunal that sent the second Doctor into the third Doctor. This is kind of our on-screen, he's one of these people. And you know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of the Kryptonians in Superman that were not listening to Jor-El. We know better. We don't like you. You're exiled, Jor-El. You're not a good thing. Hey, Zod, you're like, these guys were so against it. That's what he reminds me of. And I didn't like those guys. I don't like this guy. Yeah. I would mark him as a D tier. I don't like him. He has a purpose. Don't get me wrong, but I don't like him.
Pension of pomposity?
That's something that the fourth Doctor said. I might have misspelled that, but pension for pomposity, as the Doctor says. To me, the only thing that really keeps this guy out of the F tier is this. Like, he just shows up in midair, dressed like Charlie Chaplin for no reason.
That was his disguise. Yeah, his disguise when he would come as a messenger. And that's the only other redeeming thing, is that he did warn the Doctor that the Master was coming. It was going to happen. So, you get a little credit. but not much.
No, but it's like that guy who shoots up a nuclear missile and says in warns other country, "I'm shooting a nuclear missile. You got 2 minutes."
Yeah, pretty much. And I love that the doctor was like, "You gotta help me." No.
Nah, I say pension for publicity. I don't agree with the ancient dusty senators.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, that's what this ridiculous getup is what saves him from F tier to me. And even in this episode, he kind of just his eyes light up and he puts the warlord through torture. So he's definitely powerful. He could have stopped the master on his own. No, just chose not to do that. But that's for me. I'm saying for me, he's bottom of D. But I mean, with that, is that no? That's a C. Well, let's put it at D, and then the pomposity one is F. So, Ingle, are you with me, or are
yeah,
you
yeah? I'll go with that.
Okay, cool. And if either of you come up with clever names for the A and B tier, B tiers while we're doing this, please let me know. Time Lord number 2 on our list, and by the way, this is in alphabetical order, just in case anyone was wondering. So,
All right.
we have Andred, or as he's also known as Andredulus. He's also Arcalian chapter, the House of Deep Tree. He was a security guard during while the Doctor became president of Gallifrey during the Invasion of Time storyline. He sort of was opposed to the Doctor's presidency and the coup that the Vardans were trying to do. He fought in the war against the Sontarans, and by the end of the story, he married Leela at the very end of the story. And according to some accounts, they were about to have a child at one point or another during the novels. Obviously, at one point, and here's really where this removes him from the A tier for me. He was in the Gallifrey Big Finish series. He was sort of involved in a conspiracy where a guy was out to kill him. The building collapsed on the two of them. The other guy, Torvald, died, and he regenerated. And through some regeneration trauma, he just assumed he was the other guy, and he took on the personality of the other guy and went around pretending to be the other guy, which Leela hated, until at some point later in the first season, she just snaps back into himself, and he comes out as the actual Andred to save Leela. And like he fought on the Pandora side.
It was Torvald, the time of Torvald, I believe.
Torvald.
Yeah, they ended up in a duel. He won, Andred won, but had to regenerate as a process. So he took on the clothes of Torvald and basically became a spy to kind of figure out what was going on. This guy's brave. And smart, where you take your regeneration right at that moment and use it as a way to infiltrate yourself with your enemies. That's quick thinking.
I mean, I barely know any of them on screen, so I'm gonna have to just go with these guys are saying, and also go with like in the mindset of the storytellers and the writers, like how much originality they brought to characters. And for me, he sounds like an A.
Okay, I'm willing to concede. I mean, Ingle kind of swayed me. If you how far are you into the Big Finish Gallifrey series, by the way?
I'm mixed on a lot of different ones. I kind of catch what I can.
Oh, because in later, I think he actually sided with Pandora during the Civil War, and like he was never heard from again at one point. So I mean, he's not an S tier for me, but for a lot of good reasons, he's an A.
And that hat, man, that hat.
Of course.
Just for me, just that action of defeating your enemies and then using your regeneration in a clever way to hide amongst them, to basically keep an eye on them. That's quick thinking. I love it.
Yeah, and I just renamed the A tier to Funny Hats, something that the 10th Doctor used to say a lot. Okay, the next is Asmael. He was a teacher of the Doctor during the Academy. The Doctor encountered him during his 6th incarnation. He ran away from the schism, as some Time Lords do. Obviously, the untempered schism is something we also have to mention. The initiation of all Time Lords. Let's see what else this guy do? He's Pridonian chapter, obviously. He was a chancellor for Pandad the First. Was Rassilon? He was Rassilon's trusted confidant. Uploaded Rassilon's consciousness to the Matrix. That's good. However, he escaped Gallifrey to avoid Helron's goons at one point. First Time Lord. He was the first Time Lord renegade. That's important. He inspired the Doctor, the Master, and the Rani, and he also assassinated the High Council when he left Gallifrey.
He sounds like a badass. He really sounds a badass. He's inspiration to the Doctor, Lords of Time.
Really that high?
But if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have the Doctor probably, or not the especially not the first Doctor.
If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have the Master as we know it. So
exactly.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of evil and bad, but
doesn't mean he's not Lords of Time. I'm evil.
Okay, I mean, I tried to upload the GIF of the Sex Doctor just going villain, murderer, but apparently it's too big for StreamYard for some reason. So okay, so we're saying Lords of Time, really? For the guy who slaughtered the I mean, I guess fuck the
that's a badass move.
He's the first. Yeah, you can't turn it down.
First renegade. Yeah, you can't. I mean, I have no argument to that. No argument whatsoever. Okay, so next we have a Time Lord by the name of Folda Queen, also colloquially known as Borusa. Pridonian chapter, obviously, inspired by the schism. He was the head tutor of the Doctor, the Master, and Romana. He was on the inquiry that inquired Morbius. He was the former cardinal, later president of the Time Lords. After declining the offer of presidency twice, he fell for Rassilon's trap in the Five Doctors episode, obviously with the Game of Rassilon and the Death Zone. You know, he wanted immortality. He went mad, and then he became a stone statue decorating Rassilon's tomb. But during the Time War, he was revived by Rassilon and became the Possibility Engine, which is basically like he can see the past, future, and present, and every possible future all at once. And then the War Doctor took him and threw him into the Tantalus Eye to just eliminate an entire fleet of Daleks that were about to destroy Gallifrey. So, yeah,
is the mirror? He looks like a pompous ass.
He was, yeah, especially his first and third incarnations. Like, he was a pompous jerk for a lot of the time. And I mean, the fact that he went from being the Doctor's main source of inspiration to like a villain, like straight up villain. He brought 5 Doctors together to try to force them to play the game of Rassilon. And, you know, Garpa was coming to him, but I mean, he does have a bit of a redeeming quality to him, thanks to the Engines of War novel. So, you know, and clearly, as you can see here, literally every episode he appeared in, different actor. So this guy clearly went through some regenerations pretty quickly.
I mean, he doesn't seem inspiring. He seemed like interesting storyline, but like you said, he was a pompous ass. He regenerated a lot, and he had one redeeming quality. So I don't really care. He can be, I say, more than bottom of the list.
I think maybe middle.
Middle? Well, I'm okay with that. B tier?
Not against it.
Yeah. Still need to come up with a clever name for the B tier. But speaking of Bs, this one's gonna be an S tier. I'm pretty sure this one's gonna be an S. Irvin Braxiatel. Where do I even begin with this guy?
Please do, because I have no clue who that is.
Okay, cool. It's the Doctor's brother. The Doctor's older brother, Pridonian chapter, potentially. Also House of Longborough, just like the Doctor. He's the Doctor. Yeah, he was a tutor of Romana in her days in the Academy. He wanted to leave. He was one of the first to want to leave Gallifrey. Served as a politician for many years, and he was an ambassador for Gallifrey. He regularly met his future incarnations a lot of the times. He was a cardinal, a chancellor, a president. Helped stop Pandora. He helped stop the dogma virus. He was in Bernice Summerfield's wedding. He owned a bar in the called the White Rabbit, and he also runs the Braxiatel Collection, which is like a big planet-sized museum for artifacts from civilizations long past. But I mean, yeah, he's the dog. First of all, oh yeah, and another thing that I wanted to bring up, he was also a Time Lord burner at one point or another. And for those of you who don't know, a Time Lord burner is basically like a fancy word for hitman. Like you're given a name, and your job is basically to find the person that that was the name was given to you, and just erase them from time, erase them from ever having existed. One such time, he was given a specific name of an old man and a child. He went to burn them, and just when he saw who it was, he just couldn't really bring himself to do it, so he just tipped the old man off, and the old man stole a Type 40 TARDIS with his granddaughter and ran away from Gallifrey. Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm. The downside about this guy is he appears heavily in a lot of written work and different audio adaptations, including some Big Finish. You know, I'm gonna feel bad, but my personal feeling, if you haven't been on the show or one of its spin-offs, that automatically knocks you down. And I know you're an aficionado curator. I know you're gonna feel bad about or poorly about my choice here, but if you're not on the show, you don't get to be in some of the higher moments in the higher tiers. Sorry to say, he's mid tier.
And I disagree. I agree with the curator here. For me, any medium is a good medium. If it's a good character, it's a good character. I kind of don't care where you are. If you're well constructed, well written.
If he was that good and well written, he'd be in the show by now.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, and I agree with Frenchie as well. Like, just the fact that he's not on the show doesn't mean he's not a good character. He's a great character. Very multifaceted. It's just, you saw how people reacted to the Timeless Child storyline. How do you think people will react to seeing the Doctor's brother on screen?
For me, it's the same thing as Star Wars. A lot of characters are only in the books, not in movies, but a lot of them would be in S tier. Raven, a lot of the good characters are not there. Doesn't mean they're not well written or not heavy in importance in the lore. So I don't agree with that.
Yeah, and to use your Star Wars example, Grand Admiral Thrawn was an S tier character even before he debuted on Rebels, and maybe we'll see him in Ahsoka as well. But like,
Plagueis,
ever in action Star Wars stuff doesn't mean he's not a good character.
Plagueis.
What? Yes, Plagueis as well. Yeah, Darth
never
Plagueis
appeared once. Probably one of my favorite characters of all time. So,
yeah, so him not being on the show doesn't really exclude him, in my personal opinion, and Frenchie's obviously.
But I would agree, Lords of Time. He seems to have a very important role, well written, and also he's the freaking Doctor's brother. So yeah, I'm okay with Lords of Time too.
Yeah, I mean, the Doctor's brother, Romana's tutor of all things. He basically ended the Time Lord Civil War, found a way to save Gallifrey several times. He fought in the Time War. Like, he did a lot. Like, him not being in the show, sorry to say, that's not a really good reason. Sorry, Chris. I'm sorry. But, I mean, that's just personal opinions, I think. Okay, so now after this massively important character, we have Kalira. She's a member of the Doom Coalition. She has incredible psychic powers, manipulated by Pandrak, and basically, at a very young age, she was kind of diagnosed as a psychopath by several of her healers, because apparently Time Lords don't have doctors. But when she grew up, she used her psychic powers to drive her her healers insane. Like she's incredibly powerful, but she only appears in like the Doom Coalition, which is an 8 Doctor series of box sets, and nowhere else. But I mean, she did. Yeah. Well, what do we say about this time lady here?
She sounds bland a bit. Like there's not much to add. She seems to, like I said, very powerful, but not many presence, which doesn't have to have a lot of presence. But what you described to me kind of sounds just generic.
A generic villain type.
Yeah. So I'm okay for Dusty or Pimposity. I don't know about you guys.
What do you think, Chris?
I just don't know enough to go off of. So I would have to defer to your judgment.
Yeah, I
Some
mean,
of these, it's just I don't know anything about
yeah,
them.
full disclosure, I haven't listened to the Doom Coalition, so I know nothing about her except the wiki page that I read about her. And like I said, she sounded very powerful, but a very generic one-off villain. And the fact that she doesn't appear in other stories is kind of telling. And she was easily manipulated by another Time Lord we're about to talk about, and just a lot of the bad stuff she did was because someone was whispering in her ear. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, I'm either penchant for
Yeah.
pomposity or
I say Pimposity, to be honest.
yeah. And I just realized that I misspelled pomposity. So hold on.
I thought it looked funny. Okay. Pomposity. There you go.
Okay, speaking of villains, Professor Chronotis, who appeared in the infamously missing episode Shada,
Mhm.
which was later also revealed to be the Time Lord villain Sullivan. It was also sort of an inspiration for a young First Doctor, but he was the Great Mind Outlaw. That was his nickname. He avoided imprisonment in Shada, stole the Worshipful and Ancient Law of Gallifrey. That's a novel, the Book of Laws, and retired to Cambridge in a TARDIS that basically became his study at the university as a professor in Cambridge. But first of all, have either of you seen that episode? Because it's an episode that they stopped filming mid-production.
I believe this is one of the ones that was animated.
Yeah, it was animated. It got re-released as the Big Finish story with the Eighth Doctor. It also got sort of recreation where the parts that weren't filmed, the Tom Baker was just narrating what's happening with images.
I've seen the animated. I've heard about this episode a lot, but yeah, the live action couldn't. I don't think I have. But
yeah. I've seen the live action one and the Big Finish one, and I haven't had the time to watch the animated one just yet.
Yeah, I was introduced to it with the animated one. I like this guy.
Yeah,
I like this guy.
I mean, he's a bad guy, but he's not a bad guy. To quote,
he's Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like even though he was a villain at one point or another, he did a lot of good towards the end of his lives.
It was a good creation by Douglas Adams. Douglas Adams wrote the episode.
Yeah,
and I like that there's some depth and some complexity to it. It's not evil for the sake of evil or good for the sake of good.
He's great. Depth. He's great.
He was what 20,000 years old when he died or something like that. Like a crazy age, which is long even for Time Lords. So
I say B tier.
Yeah,
it's a good middle pack.
Above Barusa?
Now you lost me. I don't really care.
Okay, Chris?
B is fine. Yeah, I would say above Barusa.
I think so too, because he's got more redeeming qualities than Barusa does. Next, we have the Doctor's old drinking partner, the Corsair.
Yeah.
He was a man and a woman on several different occasions. She ran away from the schism. The Doctor, like I said, the Doctor's old drinking buddy. She had a Type 60 TARDIS and always had an Ouroboros tattoo, this thing, somewhere on their body. Whenever they regenerated, they just had to put that tattoo on their body somewhere. They just didn't feel the same unless they had that tattoo. These are all the different incarnations that we know of for the Corsair. Here's a little fun moment of her with Jodie Whittaker's doctor. And here's another different incarnation. I mean, it's a fun incarnation mentioned by the 11th Doctor and the Doctor's wife, an episode written by Neil Gaiman. And obviously that's where the episode we get the confirmation that the Corsair died, was killed by House, the Michael Sheen character, and sort of their body parts were restructured into Auntie's body. But the previous incarnations then later appeared in the comics alongside the 13th Doctor. So again, it's another character that we don't technically see on the TV show, but there's some cool and fun and interesting stories around them. So,
I mean, I'm actually a big fan because I collect the Doctor Who comics. I always love the Doctor Who comics, and it's someone I'm actually familiar with. But I really like her personality. I like her character. So I would actually dispute for funny hats.
Okay.
Sure.
Chris?
Sure.
Okay. Now, do we put her above Andred or below Andred?
Above.
Okay. Because Andred had less material around him. Next, a character that I love to hate, Inquisitor Darkel, also known as Dark Electric Wister Astrid. She's from the House of Jurisprudence, inspired by the Schism. She was the Inquisitor Prime for a lot of years, presided over the Doctor's trial during the infamous trial of a Time Lords season, and she also presided on the Valyards trial later in the Big Finish, the trial of the Valyard. She was opposed to Romana's presidency, and she tried to depose her. She almost became president, but she was obviously walled by Pandora and was on the wrong side, shall we say, the wrong side of the Time Lord Civil War during the Pandora Imperiatrix occupation. So, yeah. I mean, I just love the fact that they brought her back from the TV show. The original the role was written for a completely different character, but when they saw that, it's sort of like a Saw Gerrera type situation where they realized the character that they had was very similar to a character that already appeared on the TV show, so they just brought the actress back and rewrote the character. And they actually gave her a name because she didn't have a name in that episode. She was just the Inquisitor, so they gave her the name Darkel on the Big Finish range. So yeah, that's
Any opinions, Single?
Say that again. Sorry.
Any opinions?
No, this is still one of those that's just it's good where it's at.
And where it's at is where? Would you say it's a middle of the road thing?
But
I think we're gonna face that with a lot of these.
I would put either Renegade or Agent Justice Senators, even though I don't know. You said you love to hate her, right? So she's definitely not the last one.
Yeah, she's like a Dolores Umbridge character.
Yeah, and I mean, she reappeared back because it was similar and they liked what they had before, so they had something to work with. Doesn't seem that interesting enough to be over B, so I'm really between Dusty and take off the image.
Oh, sorry.
Renegade and Dusty. I think it's your call, creator.
I mean, because I know the character, I can see her fitting in perfectly with Barusa and Professor Conatus. Personally. Any disagreements?
No.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. And just because she has more material, I'm going to put her above the Sullivan. This guy, though, Dionys. I had no idea who this guy is, but I read his entire wiki page and I was like, this has got to be on the show. Dionys Savaranapexiandal. He was a soldier during the War in Heaven, the original Time Lord, before the Time Lord even was the Time Lord. He defected after the Battle of Golgolith, went to Gulliver's Rest, which is the name of a healing planet, with his wife. He became a physician. He helped a lot of people, and he was pursued by the faction Paradox, who's basically like a group of crazy weirdos who want to kill Time Lords for whatever reason. His children were murdered in front of him and then erased from time, so he never actually remembered having children. Yeah, he was like a crazy tragic character. But his wife then died, and he completely forgot she ever existed. Like, a lot of bad things have happened to this guy, unfortunately. But
I mean, the fact that none of us ever heard of him does bump a bit, I guess. At the same time, it is an interesting story. I'm a sucker for tragedy, and it seems to have a lot of meat. It's something they could always use, in the future somehow. I say Renegade or Ancient again.
Renegade.
you're saying Renegade?
Yeah.
Just for the meat of his story, it's something I can easily see myself reading or watching and being enticed with the story itself, because it is something that is a lot more than just that character with the we put in pension for Papasi, right? It is something that is substantial. So I'm okay with Renegade.
Yeah, me too. But I mean, just because I don't know the character as well, because I didn't read any of the Faction Paradox novels, I think I might have put him above Barusa. Okay, can you move on to the next one? I'm waiting on confirmation from you guys.
Yeah, I'm going with that.
Okay, next we have some weirdo who, for some reason, calls themselves the Doctor or something or rather. I don't know what that is. I mean, Pridonian chapter, real name is this, whatever this is. He stole from the House of Longborough, stole a Type 40 TARDIS, ran away. Oh yeah, I mean, how long are we gonna keep this up?
I don't think.
I don't know.
Yeah, Lords of Time, top tier, gonna be where it is. Not gonna go anywhere.
It's
He seems to have funny scarves, so I don't like scarves. I say we put him bottom tier.
so you're not a fan of scars then?
Scarves.
I said didn't I say scarves?
When you say it sounds like a scar.
Oh, I apologize. I meant to say scarves, but I mean, can we put the joke to rest already? It's the Doctor. I mean, like, we wouldn't be here without this character, right?
The show is Doctor Who, so
Yeah. Well, apparently, unless Stephen Moffat is writing the show, in which case the show is called Clara Who. But we're not. We don't need to get into that.
I see what you did there.
You'll never let that go, right? You'll never forgive that character, will you?
No, I will never forgive that character.
And I will never understand, because I fucking love Clara. She's one of my favorites.
She ruined the show for me, okay? Like, the amount of people I had to convince to come back to watch the show because that character ruined it for them, and the amount of excuses I needed to make for the show for myself to keep liking that show.
She's
Never
the
mind other
impossible
people.
girl. It's one of the most romantic, not in a loving way, but the most faithful, tragic, beautiful storylines. I don't get you. I don't get you. I love you. I love you like a brother. I don't get your hate for her that much.
Well, just follow me here, okay? The storyline of the Impossible, you love the Impossible Girl storyline, right? Everything that happened after that with Capaldi's first season, like, can you get on board with that?
Yeah, because it showcases how difficult a companion to have to adapt to some brand new personality. It wasn't like all the other ones. Okay, I'll go along with it. It's like, no, I was so attached with someone, and it plays into dialects of like mental diseases. And when people change personalities and have to accept them for who they are, even though they know they won't be the same person anymore, you still love them, but you don't automatically accept them for who they are. And as someone who lived with a mom with really bad mental diseases and been through that myself, I saw myself in her. So no, I completely defend in her character arc.
I mean, I like what you're saying, but when she just started to take over the show and it basically became the Clara Oswald show, guest starring the Doctor, that's where Stephen Moffat lost me a lot.
Well, luckily, this is not about the companions.
Yes,
it's
yes,
about
yes.
the Time Lords.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, right. And thankfully, we're not counting her as a Time Lord from that one cameo in The Name of the Doctor, because I hate that episode so much. Anyways, so next we have a character by the name of Drax. Not Drax the Destroyer, Drax the Time Lord. He was a former friend of the Time Lord from the Academy. He was a time criminal, very easily swayed. He not very bright. He failed temporal theory, which how can you be a Time Lord and fail that? But yeah, he regularly met
something else failed. I think Edgar, the internet just let out.
So what?
He warned us to storm outside. So
so
it's you and me, my friend.
Oh well, hopefully he'll come back. But
yes, because he has a lot more knowledge than I do, apparently.
So in Big Finish, he actually met future versions of himself and past versions of himself, and he just did a lot of time-related crimes with past and future versions of himself.
Generic a bit, doesn't seem that interesting. He failed fucking the basics of being a Time Lord, and you said he's not that smart. So I would put him a second contender for Pension of Precocity.
I mean, this is a weird case for a character that actually did appear on the show to be below a character who actually wasn't on the show. Sorry. And even though he has more stories to him, like, he's an idiot. Like, he sells the Doctor out in, what was it, the Armageddon Factor? Like, he sells the Doctor out. Like, the guy was your friend. Like, I don't know. Okay, finally, we're on to the second page with. This is going to be very interesting for what you said earlier, for the conversation we just had about Clara. But next we have the 11. This guy is the master on Gallifreyan steroids. Okay, you want to know why? Okay, so he suffers from a regeneration disorder, which means he experiences all of his previous incarnations at the same time, most of which were assholes, except for this guy, the 8. And he doesn't even have a proper name. Like, they just keep calling him the 1, the 2, the 3. Like, that's why his name is literally the 11. He's the 11th incarnation of a series of people who are assholes, and he kept switching from one incarnation to another. Like, this is a character that you can only do on audio because he keeps switching in and out of himself. And he's always having conversations with his past selves. And credit where it's due, each incarnation is different significantly, but like the fact that he's always, except his 8th incarnation, they're all evil, and the guy just does crazy things all throughout his many appearances on the Big Finish range. Like, unlike the Master, there is no method to this guy's madness. The Master would burn a planet to get the Doctor's attention. This guy would just burn a planet just to burn a planet. Like,
he's a Joker of Doctor Who. He just wants to see chaos ensue.
Yes, like even in the wiki page that I read, like, he married a woman, ruled a planet for a bunch of years, and then just assassinated her and burned the whole planet down just to get a lift off the planet. Like, he's crazy. And once again, credit where it's due. In the Time Lord, he regenerated again into the 12th. We became this kind-hearted old woman who finally actually felt remorse for all the horrible shit that her previous incarnations did. So again, some redeeming qualities. I wouldn't say it's an S tier character, but
I would make an argument because I know you talked about this character often enough that I did some research on it, and I was kind of, how can I say it, fascinated by the uniqueness of this character and also the story arc and the imagination the writers had with him. So I would actually make an argument for Lords of Time, but on the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, again, like you said, the creativity, the fact that he keeps switching in and out of his other incarnations, most of which are played by the same actor, Mark Boner, who was in the Flesh two-parter in the Matt Smith era, by the way. But yeah, again, credit where is due.
Either top of Funny Hats or bottom of Lord of Time.
Yeah, I wonder what Chris would have said, but I'm going top of Funny Hats. You're saying bottom of Lords of Time. I think we should meet in the middle and just see Funny Hats. And you know what? Maybe you should just stay at the top
Yeah,
of Funny Hats.
I agree. Unless there's someone that's really more badass than that idea, but I actually find it's a good idea.
Okay, next is the Emperor. Not to be confused with the Star Wars character.
And yet, same chair. Well,
Pretty much, yeah, from Exegol. So he's the Doctor, but evil. He's injustice supreme, with a little bit of, yeah. Oh, sorry. I tripped over my notes here. He's basically the Injustice Gods Among Us Superman with a little bit of Palpatine thrown in there. And he also had a daughter called Miranda, who was a companion of the Eighth Doctor. Yeah, but like, so at some point in the far, far future, the Doctor became evil and announced himself as Lord Supreme of the time. Fun fact: not the first time, not the last time we're going to see other versions of the Doctor on this list today. But
his character arc seems lazy. It's like, okay, let's make Doctor Who evil. Let's make him ominous and add not much layers, else then he's evil. So for me, it's either Agent Dusty or Pension for Pomposity.
I mean, they did the same thing for the 10th Doctor in the Time Lord Victoria storyline, which is a multi-platform thing. But at least they have the stories to back up his evilness. Like that Doctor teamed up with the Daleks and committed genocide. I would rank that above this guy. Like this guy, it's, like you said, it's the familiar trope of let's take a beloved character, the protagonist, and make him evil.
Just to make him evil with no actual. It's like give her an example. Palpatine is evil to be evil, but once you understand his backstory in Plagueis and how devious and nuanced he is, and how he fooled the whole Jedi Council, never knowing he was actually the one pulling the strings. There's so much layers to him. So yes, he's evil to be evil, but he's so well characterized that he feels a lot more dimensional. This is just flat.
Yeah, it's an S tier evil type character. So yeah, I'm saying just because it is the Doctor, that edges him out of the F, but not by much.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, next. Chancellor Flavia. Apparently she's an aunt of the Doctor, inspired by the schism. She helped the Doctor against Barusa several times during the Omega's return and the Five Doctor storyline. She became temporarily the president after the Fifth Doctor split at the end of the Five Doctors. She was but from all accounts, from all I could get, she was reelected twice and consistently helped the Doctor from behind the scenes. She turned a blind eye to a lot of the bullshit the Doctor was doing, but from all accounts that I could pick up,
okay, so
and it doesn't really say much about her, but from all accounts, she was a bad president to a lot of people.
So she sounds like a politician, turns a blind eye to most what's happening, and does things for her own gain. And again, sounds a bit lazy as a character itself, very generic. Dared have the purpose, but nothing more. Ancient or pompous?
I think the top of the ancient, primarily because she did help the Doctor a lot. Just wasn't the best president at all. And next we have Gat from the fugitive of the Jadoon storyline. She was an agent of the division, which apparently preceded these celestial intervention agencies from the older days of Gallifrey during the time of the fugitive Doctor. Well, apparently the fugitive Doctor had held her in very high regard, but she gets taken out pretty easily when the Doctor, this picture right here, the Doctor sort of reverses the gun so that it fires on its user instead of her, instead of whoever they were trying to shoot. I mean, badass character, but very one-off and very one-note. So I don't know what to do with this one.
I mean, it. She seems like you said B tier to the fact that she's interesting, but they didn't use her the right way, even though she's interesting.
Which can be said about a lot of Chris Chibnall era characters. Let's be honest.
That is true. That being said, I do remember her, and I always enjoyed her, even though she was she's very not there for long. So I still say Renegade, maybe mid Renegade.
Really? I think I'd go the bottom of Renegade, just
Okay.
because we don't get enough time with her, unfortunately, and that sucks. She could maybe, and I think she does appear in the Fugitive Doctor comic book range. Haven't gotten around to that yet. Maybe we see her in the Big Finish series when the Fugitive Doctor Big Finish series finally gets up and running. But for now, she's a bottom of the middle tier for me personally.
Okay.
Next, we have the General, also known as Kenosium. Yeah, Kenosium, which is a clever play on the name of the actor Ken Bones. But he was inspired by the schism. He was a woman for all of his incarnations except the one we actually do get to see in the show, which I always felt that was pretty funny. He studied at the academy by Bellator, who apparently was a big military genius. He survived 16 transwarp campaigns during the Time War, served in the Time War alongside the War Doctor. He was in the War Room alongside Leela. I do like this guy. I like the Ken Bones interpretation. He does turn a blind eye to a lot of stuff that Leela does that they don't want the High Council to know. Like he works his way up to trust Leela during the War Room series. And then obviously he was shot by the Doctor when he foolishly tried to save Clara and regenerated back into a woman again. And that was really the last we ever saw of her. But
I always found this character badass. He's one of those, or she, but them, they keep chugging on. It's like they're tanks. They never fucking let out. So he not Lords of Time material, but I think Funny Hats would be a good tier for them.
I agree. And the badassness, I think, really stepped up a notch when you regenerated back into a woman. Unfortunately, the Hellbent was the last time we saw of them, and we're probably never going to see it again because next time we're back to Gallifrey, that was when the Master destroyed it. So,
yeah. Well, there's always ways to bring it back, but
yeah, I suppose. Yeah,
I mean,
I would love to see more of their incarnation on other Doctor Who media if that will ever be in the cards. Okay, next, this guy, one of Soda's least favorite characters, Chancellor Goth.
I remember this one, and I freaking hate this character.
Yeah, Prydonian chapter, driven mad by the schism. No surprise there. He was part of the tribunal that presided over the Doctor and the Warlords. He then became a chancellor a bunch of times. Tried to work his way up to a presidency. Went insane when turns out that he wasn't going to get the presidency. Was actively against the Doctor during the assassination of Pandad IV. Yeah, he was killed by the Master. Fun fact, though, he was brainwashed by the Skeletal Master on Tesserus, which was the main setting of the Curse of Fatal Death story.
A lot to do, a lot of meats, but I honestly don't know why they keep giving him that kind of like denseness into that character. Is one of those characters you love to hate.
Yes, absolutely.
But you know somebody you love to hate, but they're enjoyable to watch. I love to hate, and I'm like, why does he even exist? The actor, I don't like the actor's interpretation. I find him jarring. I find him annoying, and it's one of those people you just want to slap so bad, but not in a good way. So for me, he is bottom of the list on the bottom of the list.
Okay. Well, to answer your question, the reason he exists is to be a henchman for the master. Like he's a scapegoat in that story for the most part.
Yeah, and he's an idiot for it. First of all, but the portrayal of that character is probably the most annoying thing I've seen in a recent time. I don't like this character. I don't like the actors who played that character. For me, it's like bottom of the trash.
Oh, okay. I mean, I don't like this guy at all, but I think because of his significance to the story, he should at least be at the top of the bottom
Okay.
because of all the hoops that he forced the Doctor to jump through. And speaking of forcing the Doctor to jump through hoops,
Did he come back by the way? Because I heard a blink not too long ago. In English, is he in the waiting room?
nope.
Okay.
I don't see him. I told him to come back when he can, but either the power isn't back or he had to do another show. He did tell me earlier that he had another show, so he might not be for the full thing. So
Okay.
I guess it's just doing me.
All right.
So like I said, speaking of forcing the Doctor to jump through hoops, Hedin, played by Michael Goth, by the way, who was Alfred in the Batman movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, inspired by the schism, he was a firm believer of Omega. He helped Omega bond with the Fifth Doctor in the Arc of Infinity episode and gave his life to the cause. He's considered a martyr by the adherents of Ohm, but other than being played by Michael Goth, I don't really see a lot of good things about this guy.
He's generic. The actor is awesome. The character is just meh.
Yeah.
So I say, just for the actor's sake, Agent Dusty Senators.
Oh, that high, really? I was gonna go below Goth, but
Oh yeah, really? Oh, okay. You see, the actor still saves it for me. Nostalgia, maybe. He's a bad character. It might not be logical what I'm saying, but I love the actor. He's such an endearing actor that he still brings a bit something to the character. Just not much, but still not penchant for pomposity, in my opinion.
okay. You know what? We are judging the character, not the actor here. And he did also play the Celestial Toymaker in the William Hartnell series.
Okay.
But
Okay, I'll concede. I'll concede.
so below Goth. Even though
Below.
we love the actor. I mean, he really saves those Batman movies for me personally. Especially the later ones. But okay, now we've got Hemel. Worshipped Rassilon, and he became a vampire for some reason, which is the Time Lord's number one enemy, the vampires. What the hell are you doing? He tried to turn the Fifth Doctor and Tegan into vampires as well. And he was killed by Nissa at one point or another. Now, yeah, not very generic story, and he only appeared in like one comic book. But the main reason he's here is he's basically the first ever Time Lord of person of color. If you ignore the racist yellow-faced character from the Planet of the Spiders, he's basically the first person of color Time Lord. So you gotta give him a little bit of credit for that.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know much about this character, but he is a first. He looks like a badass, a bit too close to the zoom to his face in that picture.
That's the only picture I could find, unfortunately.
I sadly have zero knowledge of him, so I'm gonna really lean onto your opinion.
Well, my opinion is he was a generic villain and became a vampire, which, like, that's really what the Time Lords stand against. So, I don't know. I'd say the Dusty Senators.
Yeah. Mid.
Above Adelphi.
Okay.
Between Adelphi and Flavia. Now, speaking of racist yellow face bullshit, the Hermit. Sometimes
Yeah.
referred to as Kanpo Rinpoche, sometimes Choji. But, I mean, it is the first Time Lords we see regenerate other than the Doctor. And again, if you ignore the stupid racist yellow face bullshit that they never should have done in the first place, the guy inspired the Doctor more than anyone else, more than Barusa, more than Asmael, and like when I love when the Third Doctor talks about that darkest day that he had, where he climbed up the roof of, at the top of the mountain, and the hermit showed him a dandelion, and that's really what made his day brighter, and just the impact that this guy had on the Doctor, and the fact that he comes back in the Third Doctor's ending to help the Doctor regenerate. It saves his character, but I mean, again, you can't ignore how this character looks or how he talks. Which was again, they should have just, if they wanted to do this, they just should have just hired an Asian actor. But that's really not how they were doing things in the 70s. And unfortunately, a lot of great Doctor Who stories and a lot of great Doctor Who characters suffer from being great stories with horribly racist bullshit in them.
Look,
So
like in university, when we're like, I was taking sex and religion class, which is really the look of not just like sexual acts, but like women, men in different time periods. The one thing they said is, we're not here to judge the actions. We're here to understand the actions, and for it not to be ever repeated. So for me, it is just a thing of their time. They didn't know better. Is it okay? No,
no,
but at the same time, it's something that was, not necessarily think of, because they didn't have the same sensibilities of what we have today. So I say we put that aside. It is unfortunate, but it's still well intentioned and was not meant for anything. So I think we should really just concentrate on the character.
okay, that's fair.
And I say funny hats. From the description you told me, he seems really important. And I say either Lords of Time or Funny Hats. Again, if we completely dismiss being a casualty of its own time period and mentality, I say pretty high.
I think you should go below
The
the
11?
11.
Okay.
And speaking of people who had a profound impact on the Doctor, Innocette. I almost called her Innocent so many times while I was putting it through my head. But yeah, Innocette from the House of Longborough, a close childhood friend of the Doctor while he was growing up. According to him, the only member of the House of Longborough that the Doctor actually felt close to, like the only one who didn't bully him or he actually wanted to be around. She had a profound impact on his life going forward. And yeah, she was killed by Quinces, and yeah, she had telekinetic and future sight abilities. But yeah, unfortunately, I haven't read the Longborough storyline. That's really like the one I really want to read. But unfortunately, it's like the end of the book series, pretty much. So like it would be like jumping into Avengers Endgame without having watched a single
Movie
MCU
of the,
at
yeah.
all. So I,
I
I
mean,
want to read this. I want to rate her higher, but unfortunately, I don't know much about her. She only appears in that one book.
I say she doesn't seem like a bad character. She doesn't seem like a good character. She seems like just a middle character. So I say Renegade.
That's fair. Right next to the other book only character.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is the one I really wish Ingle was back for this one. It's Jenny.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Girl.
Doctor's daughter. I mean, unfortunately, we only get her for one episode. She does come back on the Big Finish range. Looks great with a hat. She's got a maybe human, maybe not sidekick called Noah, played by Sean Biggerstaff, which is awesome. She regularly goes on missions sent by Doria Maldavar. She fights Cybermen, the
I
Ood.
mean,
There's
I
like
have
a
a question
Terminator.
for you. Did
Go
they
ahead.
ever tied up the whole like granddaughter and now daughter. Like, is that the granddaughter from the first season? Is that her daughter?
No, well, the granddaughter is also on this list, but the Doctor's granddaughter, Susan, was from the old times of Gallifrey. He adopted her. Like, this is spoilers for
Okay,
this
so it's
list,
not
but
actual granddaughter.
yeah, but it's complicated. She's about his daughter his granddaughter is in the same way that Jenny is the Doctor's daughter. If you remember the episode, they just took a DNA sample and just grew it into a person. She does regularly come back in other media. Never comes back in the show, which is a crime because she's literally married to David Tennant, and she's the Doctor. She's the daughter of Peter Davison. So why wouldn't they bring her back?
I mean, he's coming back for a couple of episodes. What might we be surprised?
I wish. I hope.
But yeah, for me, she's I do remember this character. I always, again, complex because Doctor Who's so wide at one point, like granddaughter, daughters, like what's going on here? But I still think that she's either between top renegade or mid to bottom funny hats.
I think if Ingle was here, he would probably rank her higher than funny hats. I'm saying Lords of Time, man. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
But would you be okay with that? Because you said
lower. I would. You know what? I would concede the top of funny hats because she's good, but not that good.
All right, fine. Meet in the middle. Someone finally dethrones the 11. Someone who's definitely not going too far on the list. Castellan Jericho.
Yeah.
They literally. This is the funny thing. They literally named him Jericho because the actor's name was Paul Jericho. The character didn't even have a name until they decided to give him one retroactively. He was the Castellan. He was a bad Castellan during the Arc of Infinity storyline and the Five Doctors. He was repeatedly against the Doctor and killed off screen. They didn't even do him the courtesy of being shot on screen. They just killed him off screen while he was running away from the Mind Probe. Until this stupid thing happened. So in 2020, when the lockdown was at its highest, they did this thing called Doctor Who Lockdown, where they just transmitted all kinds of different episodes with the original actors watching live and tweeting along with the people on Twitter. And they just used this guy for a random trailer promo for it, where they brought the actor back from obscurity for this very quick scene to show that the Castellan is still alive. And just like we said earlier with Vorg, of all the characters you can use, this guy.
I mean, the guy needed a paycheck and he needed an actor. What can I say? Yeah, he is. I don't remember anything about his character else than he was stupid and generic and boring. So for me, it's a clear contention for pension of pomposity.
And he's not even as recognizable as Michael Goth.
There you go.
Mid,
we're good mid.
Yeah, between Hedden and Kalira. Speaking of bad Castellans, my least favorite Castellan Kellner from the.
You know who that is? I can't remember who that is, but man, does he have a slappable face.
He has a very slappable personality, too. Like, he's the guy that he joins with the Doctor when the Doctor forces himself to become a president, and then he just becomes like the Grima Wormtongue, or even lower than that. He just basically becomes the puppy dog for whoever is in control. Like, when the Vardens take control of Gallifrey, he's a bootlegger for the Vardens. When the Sontarans take over Gallifrey, he becomes a bootlegger for the Sontarans. And he gets what's coming to him in the end. But, I mean, he's, like you said, very slappable face. First thing you see him do on screen is like Andred calls him on the communicator, and he's like, "This is Castellan Kellner."
He's one of those people that he's just going to go with who he thinks is going to be the strongest and keep flipping to survive. There's no loyalty. There's no depth to him. For me, this is another pompous one. I'm not sure where we put unpomposity. If you agree with me, I I still think he's better than the two last characters. I would put him next to the one we just put, maybe, but they're reversible in my opinion.
I'd put him at the bottom. I mean, you're a Castellan, you're in charge of security, and look what you made happen, you moron! Like,
Yeah, okay, so he's incompetent enough to be at the bottom, I guess.
he basically, and again, a lot of it was the Doctor's fault, but he let the Vardens swoop in and take over Gallifrey, and then the Sontarans came and invaded Gallifrey because of this guy, and he helped the Sontarans find the key to the key of Rassilon. Like, a lot of bad stuff happened because of this guy. And I was gonna say before you came in, it's like he was like, "Ah, yes, this is Castellan Kellner. Who is it?" And then later in the same scene, you realize, like, Andred, who was calling him on the communicator, was sitting several feet behind him in the same room, and he couldn't even be bothered to get up and talk to him. Fuck that guy. Okay, this one, the leader. This one is bonkers. Okay, when I read it, it's bonkers.
I've heard of the leader before.
You might have heard of the Marvel universe leader, but have you heard of the leader in the Doctor Who universe?
I think I have, just by mention, and because you're not the only you're not the only Doctor Who geek I know,
No,
and I think I've heard a couple of my friends talk about him with passion, but I don't think I know especially of him per se.
Okay, so are you ready? Are you sitting down for this?
Well, I hope I am. If not, I'm very small.
Okay, he's the Doctor from the Inferno universe. Do you know what the Inferno universe is? There's that episode called Inferno, the one episode where John Pertwee accidentally goes to a different universe and finds that all of his friends in the unit are assholes. It's like the the broken mirror episode from Star Trek. Everyone is bad, and the Brigadier has an eye patch. So yeah, he's an exiled third Doctor from the Inferno universe who chose one of the faces that the Time Lords offered him, landed in the 1930s as opposed to either the 70s or 80s. He got into politics, unlike the actual third Doctor. He joined a revolutionary arms. Basically, he joined this group of radicalists who just acted a military coup and assassinated all the members of the royal family. This turned Great Britain into a martial law country. Became the leader after, and then his best friend died, so he became the leader of Great Britain. Essentially, the Time Lords decided to remove his ability to regenerate and heal himself. He basically grew old and became sick. He was in a wheelchair, and then his bodyguard, which was that universe's version of Alistair Lethbridge Stewart, he became his close bodyguard, and he used him in the wheelchair as a battering ram to stop a revolutionary force from entering his office. And he broke his neck and died, but he still kept using his image to inspire fear in the hearts of people. And obviously that all went to shit when the real third Doctor traveled to the alternate universe, and the whole Earth just exploded from the nuclear reactor.
So he sounds legendary. I say we put him top tier.
I mean, he's definitely better than the other evil version of the Doctor. This is what we were saying earlier. It's not the Doctor for the sake of being evil.
Yeah.
They actually wrote an interesting story for him.
Exactly. Like, if they give him meat and there's reasons and there's motivation and you can sympathize, empathize, but still hate, like, all that makes a good character. But the what I call the Indiana Jones Nazis to be Nazis, for me, it's like, it's easy just to put evil on someone, but no one, unless you're Hitler, no one's just pure evil. They think they're right. There is nuances to their characters, but they're just perceived as evil or bad guys by the actual perspective of the heroes, And the contrary is true. For them, the heroes is the bad guys. So it's well written. I say top tier.
And here's another term that I like to use a lot, is like, he actually did the work. He actually did evil stuff. You know, he respect is earned, not given. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So I definitely put him above Esmail. I'm not sure I would put him above Braxiatel though. Because Braxiatel is like a major character.
I'll leave you to that call.
Okay, so and again, this I wish we had Chris Ingles' input on this, but you know, life gets in the way as per usual. Next, now this is not our first non-Gallifreyan Time Lord, but this character is a Time Lord through and through. Like you'd be very hard pressed to find characters more deserving of the title of Time Lord than Leela. Obviously, she was a companion of the Fourth Doctor for a lot of time. She married Andred and stayed on Gallifrey. She was accepted by the Shobogans. She was Romana's presidential bodyguard. Lost her eyesight during the Time Lord Civil War. Got it back after drinking vampire blood. Don't get me started on that storyline. But yeah, she fought in the Time War. She was a CIA agent. She met some Jadoon, obviously. She fought the Time Lord alongside the Master. She was believed lost and came back as the Lady of Obsidian. Like, few non-Gallifreyan characters deserve to be counted among the ranks of the Time Lords as much as this character. Like, she's awesome. She's amazing. It's just, you know, she's not Gallifreyan. She's human. But what are you going to do, right?
She's still part of the family. So for me, it's like the Irishman in Godfather. He's not Italian. He's freaking Irish descendant. But he still found a way to move up the ranks and still be considered as part of the family, even though that they're very strict usually when it comes to those rules. Same thing for me, for her. She did the almost impossible and be accepted as a Time Lord, even though that the rules are, you know, against her. So for me, she's either top tier or second tier.
I would go top of the second tier, or you know, bottom of the S tier. But I mean, I think she's either an A tier. Oh, sorry, let me rephrase that. I think she's an S tier character, A tier companion, and really high A.
Well, okay, let's look at it. Let's take out the companion side. Let's look at her accomplishments as a Time Lord and her character as a Time Lord itself.
See, that's why I consider her as an S tier character, but an A tier companion. So I think, yeah, bottom of the S.
Okay.
What's next? So after this S tier character, we have some random dude calling himself the Master. Like, seriously, who does that? Who goes around calling himself the Master? The Pridonian chapter, House of Oakdown, went mad by the schism. He was a CIA agent for a while until he went mad, was in prison in Shada, and you know what? It's the freaking Master.
And for me, my favorite iteration is the Mistress. I absolutely love that actress.
My favorite is, I mean, to me, there's no topping the original, the Roger Delgado version. But I mean, he's had just as many faces as the Doctor, if not more, just as many actors as the Doctor, and so many different versions. Like you said, with Missy, like so many of these are widely different from one another, and like he is the Moriarty to the Doctor's Sherlock Holmes. Like,
yeah.
And you know, just looking at the accomplishments this guy does, that's an S tier villain, S tier Doctor Who character, S tier whatever. We could literally sit here and do a tier ranking list just of our different portrayals of the Master. Spoilers for next month, but I mean, you cannot tell me that it's not an neck and neck with the Doctor, even above Braxiatel. He's even closer to the Doctor than the Doctor's own brother. There's really not much you can say about.
I'm gonna make a very controversial statement. I say we put her over the Doctor. Just because without the Master, you wouldn't have the most classic motivations and storylines for the Doctor. She is what Joker is to Batman. Without Joker, there's no Batman. Without Master, you got no Doctor Who. I argue the Master could top Doctor Who in the S tier.
Well, my counter argument to that is that we had Batman for at least 2 decades before the Joker was introduced, in much the same way that we had the Doctor for 2 whole Doctors before the Master was introduced. Now, obviously, they brought him back retroactively through other means, but the show was still highly popular before the Master showed up. When the Master showed up, it just skyrocketed the show's success. But still,
And that's my argument there. The Master not only brought something interesting, he changed the whole game when it came for Doctor storylines. The Doctor Who stories are good, campy but good and fun. He brought it to almost like Shakespearean level that we haven't seen Doctor Who before, and kept elevating the character and the storylines every time they were on screen. So for me, for that fact, it's a proof that, again, without the Master, Doctor Who is a good show. With Master, Doctor Who is an epic show. And if you need that kind of character to bring that level to a show, they kind of surpass the main character.
well, again, I gotta counter that with the fact that several Doctors did not have the Master in their entire run, and they didn't need the Master to be great. Like, did you ever notice that the Master was a complete no-show during the Matt Smith era or the Christopher Eccleston era? Like,
Well, we don't talk about the Eccleston era personally, but
you don't like the Eccleston era?
I mean, else than Mommy, I'm not really a fan of his episodes. Not really, no.
Okay, so again, Matt Smith. Look at the storylines we got with River Song. One of your favorite characters, Clara Oswald. Did the Master ever need to show up during those storylines? During the Amy and Rory era?
But I'm not shocked. I'm talking about the lore itself, what he brought, and the cynicism he brought. He brought the yang to the yin, which is Doctor. Before there's only the yin, and again, good seasons without the Master. I agree, but when the Master is involved in the storyline, it brings it even higher.
I mean, again, I just can't get over the hump of like the show can't exist without the Master. Therefore, the Doctor, the Master does not top the Doctor, in my opinion, on this list.
Okay, well, we'll leave it because we only have half an hour left, and we can spend probably half an hour arguing this fact. So I say we move on, but I don't agree, my friend. I don't agree.
Okay. I mean, agree to disagree. And I just asked Engel if he's coming back, but I'm not looking very hopeful on that. Speaking of Doctors and Masters, Commander Maxwell, played by Colin Baker before Colin Baker was the Doctor. I mean, he only really shows up to shoot the Doctor, and really that's it. He then reprised his role in the Big Finish range during the Time Lord Civil War, which kudos on them for getting Colin Baker back to reprise this random blink and you'll miss it role. But yeah, I mean, he sided with Jericho for no good reason, and he was a very generic Time Lord guard. That's all I can say. That's the only positive thing I can say about him.
I mean, he's there. Yay for him.
Yeah.
Pension for pomposity.
Yeah. Much better Doctor than he is a random guard.
And even then, I'm honestly, he for me is in my bottom when it comes to Doctors.
That's because you don't listen to Big Finish, sir.
Most probably. What I've seen him on screen is not good for me.
He is an amazing Doctor, and he's actually in a rare position where the TV show stuff that he did actually drags him down. Like if you only had just the Big Finish stuff, he'd be an S tier Doctor for me. But the TV show stuff really brings him down.
Oh yeah, it's horrible.
And well, speaking of characters that I actually grew to like more on the Big Finish side, Ace. Now, if you're wondering why Ace is this low on the alphabetical list, yeah, Dorothy McShane is her full name, so that's
Okay.
why. Anyway, so yeah, she started out as the companion of the Seventh
Oh,
Doctor,
Jesus, true. Okay, yeah.
yeah, and blew up a Dalek with a baseball bat, became a Dalek killer, and eventually she joined the Time Lords. Not really sure when, but she fought in the Time War, and she spent a lot of time on Gallifrey itself. Not as much as Leela, obviously, but she was also a CIA agent, and she came back recently in the Power of the Doctor, went back to Earth and started her own charity fund, a charitable Earth, which is literally an acronym of ACE. But yeah,
I
top of
mean,
a companion. Not sure about it if it's the Great Time Lord though.
yeah, that's the thing. Like a companion, I always found her okay. It took me a minute to remember her. That's how much I love her. But I mean, good for her for being a Time Lord. Doesn't really bring much, in my opinion. Is not bad. Is not good. So by default, I say mid tier.
I'd say she should be at least at the very top of the mid tier. Because again, much better companion than she is Time Lord, Gallifreyan, whatever you want to call it. But you know, she
All
wasn't
right.
on Gallifreyan enough stories to warrant that status. Okay, next we have one of my absolute favorite characters from all of Doctor Who, a character I wish they bring back to the show, the Meddling Monk. I
No.
fucking love the monk.
No, I hate this freaking
What?
character.
What?
He,
Come on.
especially in the first Doctor era, he's the most annoying, bumbling buffoon.
But that's the
I,
point. That's what's
I,
so good about him.
bro, I'm sorry. I am hard set on putting him from pension for pomposity.
Oh man, you're breaking my heart,
I
Frenchie. Come on.
absolutely hate this character, like with a passion hate.
Wow, I did not know we were gonna. I thought our conversation about Clara was bad. I did not know we were gonna have this much animosity towards the monk. I mean, I love
No,
the guy.
no.
Ah, man.
Every time he's involved in a story, I roll my eyes.
Ah, well, obviously to me he's an S, but uh, I can't in good conscience put him in S because so
I'll be flexible and I'll be okay with H and Dusty.
I mean I wouldn't. I say he's an S. I don't think he's the top of S. You're saying he's the bottom of F. So I think the best way to compromise.
He's not renegade, not even good enough to be. I say H and Dusty. If you want to put him top of H and Dusty, I'm okay with that. But I think I'm being generous when it comes to he should be in bottom of the bottoms.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Uh,
Sorry, I broke you 50.
no, no, not that. You mean you froze for a second there. I didn't hear what you said.
For me, like again, I don't know where I froze, but I'm just gonna reiterate. I don't like this character. He is not even close to up. He's the most annoying person I've ever seen in a long time in Doctor Who. And I recently did a whole run of the old Doctor Who's because on Pluto TV they actually show the classic Who's, and every time I see him, I can't. No, I can't.
Well, maybe okay. Suggestion: maybe the Big Finish range will change your mind because
No.
seriously, the Rufus
No.
Hound version is amazing, and I still love the Peter Butterworth TV interpretation. But Rufus Hound just takes this character and runs with it. So
Good. He should be running out of the door of my heart. He's not. No.
okay, fine. I guess we're forever going to be on opposite sides on that. Okay. So next character, Morbius, not to be confused with the movie Morbius. Yeah, he's one of the worst presidents the Time Lords have ever seen. He became a warmonger, a ruthless tyrant. One of the few people on this list from the Patrex chapter, which well, that's interesting in and of itself. But yeah, he went mad by the schism. He was one of the four consuls for Pandad the First. Argued for more chapter representation, which is I guess it's good, and regeneration for all Gallifreyans. Again, good, but when he became president, he just basically led a coup and a massive Time Lord civil war, resurrected in this form, then came back again, tried to reclaim his throne. I mean, he had a war in the ancient times, the dark times of Gallifrey, against a massive army, which surprisingly enough was led by a future version of the Fifth Doctor, who led an army of Sontarans and Ice Warriors and other races. But I mean, again, he was a tyrant. He had a lot of good ideas at first, but just became a really bad person.
I mean, I'll let you make the judgment. I don't really have an opinion, to be honest.
I mean, just for the significance of his story and how the Doctor basically, like a lot of other Time Lords, the Doctor kind of idolized him before he actually met him and realized what he did. So, again, I wish he didn't put the monk this low. I was going to say Ancient Dusty Senators. But you know what? Screw it. Below the monk because I love the monk. Okay, now... Hold on, let me just make sure. Yeah. Now one of my favorite Big Finish characters, Narvin. Also known as Narvin Etrolonium, another Patrick's chapter. But yeah, he was basically a politician. He was... originally, he was against Romana's presidency, but he sort of mellowed, and he was a coordinator of the CIA, the Celestial Intervention Agency. He went on a lot of missions. He really helped Romana on a lot of occasions, especially during the Time Lord Civil War, and he helped her find a cure for the Dogma virus. He basically gave up all of his future regenerations to protect Romana and Leela. That's very selfless of him. He fought in the Time War alongside Romana and against Rassilon. Sort of went off the grid for his own safety to avoid Rassilon's wrath. But this really kind of irks me, but it's very much within his character. It kind of sort of is the reason the Time War started in the first place. And the reason I say that is the Daleks invaded Gallifrey, so he thought, what if the Daleks never existed? So he sent Chancellor Valius back to the past to meet the Fourth Doctor, which was the inciting incident behind genesis of the Daleks, which the Daleks often considered to be the first shot being fired in what eventually became the Time War. But yeah, so he kind of sort of started the Time War, but unintentionally. But he had it was very much his thing of trying to do something to help, but screwing things over in the process.
I mean, if it wasn't for, like I said, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have a Time War, intentional or unintentional. For me, that brings a big crux to the storyline itself and places him as a very important character. So I would put him mid to low funny hats.
I can jive with that. I'd probably put him above the Hermit. Because I love him so much. I love him so much as a character. Character I don't love as much, Cardinal Alistra. She was like the head of the war council, like not really the head of the war council, but just she was a very prominent figure during the Time War. She really led a lot of successful campaigns against the Daleks. She basically had the War Doctor on a leash a lot of the times and really told him where to go and what to do. A past version of herself became a Matrix hologram in the Gallifreyan War Room. But yeah, I mean, not a lot of stories with her, unfortunately, because the actress Jacqueline Peters passed away. So that's why they brought in Caroline Pickles as her previous incarnation for newer stories. But she's pretty significant, I would say. Again, pseudo companion of the War Doctor, but mainly she was the one that basically told the doctor, the war doctor, what to do and where to go. So pretty important, I would say.
Important. Is that me or you?
What?
For the breaking. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that.
Okay, I'm just deleting images in the middle. In the meantime, and I'm gonna put the picture up because we're still talking about her. And yeah, I just got confirmation from Ingo. He's not apparently not coming back. He's still out of power at the moment. So really hope we can get through this list before you have to leave, because I don't think I can do this on my own. But if I'm going to be on my own, I'm definitely going to put the monk at the top. Just saying. Well, I thought that would bring him back. Okay, so it looks as though I'm kind of stuck doing this on my own, unless he unmutes himself. Or
Yeah.
there you are.
Sorry, baby mama was calling me.
Okay.
So yeah, she. I mean, it doesn't seem that interesting. Still an important part of the lore without really being present in the lore that much. So I'd say not low, not high, mid.
Okay. Mid sounds perfect for me. I'd say above Chronotis and right below Dark Ale.
Yeah.
But now we're on to a major one, a big one. Omega. Like, we would not have time travel without this guy. Keep that in mind.
Can we agree right now, S tier, to get it
Yes.
out of the way? Okay, thank
I
you.
don't even have to go over my notes, which unfortunately I spent a lot of time working on. But I mean, S tier. But where on S tier?
Oh, sadly above Doctor Who's brother.
I mean, no
Third.
sadly about it. I can jive with that. I mean, whoops, major villain in a cross media, and again, he's one of the founding fathers of Time Lord Society.
When's the
Where else
last time we saw him in a show?
in the show was Arc of Infinity, where he looked like this for no good reason. But I mean, he only appeared in 2 episodes, but like his influence on the whole franchise goes above and beyond most of the characters on the list. Like, again, he created the Eye of Harmony. Again, like I said, we would not have time travel in the universe without this guy. So easily an automatic S tier. Are you listening? Are you hearing me, or is it...
Yes.
Oh, because you weren't responding for a second.
Oh, I thought you were just talking to yourself. Yes, I agree. Yes, dear.
And speaking of S tiers, another potential incarnation of the Doctor from the Dark Times, possibly even before the Doctor. This is most likely who the Doctor eventually would become, or rather did become. Time travel is confusing, but yeah, apparently he was he was the third member of the founding fathers of Gallifrey. Possibly he was Tecteun. He was Susan's original grandfather, and kind of gave Rassilon and Omega everything that they needed to jumpstart Time Lord Society. But history is written by the victors, and this guy went against Rassilon. So Rassilon basically did everything that he could to try and erase his memory from ever having existed. But yeah, I mean, he's basically the Doctor and kind of the creator of Gallifrey, sort of the creator of Time Lord Society. So,
I mean, I like the whole origin thing. I like they were trying to do something. Still doesn't sound as good as the second Doctor Who villainish type of thing. I not as bad as the Ancient Dusty Senators ones. So I would either put it, yeah, I would probably put in Renegades or top of Agent Dusty.
I think because he's so enigmatic, we can't really put him at the top, near the top of the list. But as close as to the top of the list as I think, which is right here. Agreed?
Oh, you're freezing up.
I said that we can put him at the top, but about as top, as close to the top as we can get him.
Okay.
Okay, so we talked about the 11. We talked about Kalira. Now the third member and leader of the Doom Coalition, Padrak. Apparently, he was another close friend of the Doctor's at an early age, but he manipulated the 11 and Kalira to do a lot of bad villainy stuff and almost became the president. But again, haven't listened to the Doom Coalition, so I don't really have much to go off of. But I mean, just the fact that he was the leader of that group and manipulated the other two Time Lords who we've already established have different levels of merits to them. I would say at least he would deserve to be at the Renegade.
I agree. I don't have much opinions, so I'll
Probably above Gat, but not above Barusa. Okay, next we have President Pandat the Fourth.
I mean, like, character aside, I don't want to be mean, people, but talk about genetically unlucky.
Yeah, only purpose he served was to get shot. Now, obviously, he did appear in other incarnations.
Okay, he's not that ugly there. Okay.
Oh,
because there he's horrible. Jesus.
I mean, it's a bad quality of the picture, but still. But yeah, I mean, he did actually have several other incarnations, which were later retroactively named Pandad the Fourth. But really, aside from appearing in a lot of several of the Third Doctor stories, the only main purpose he served was to get shot, which basically jump-started that whole president assassination storyline.
He looks like he has a big golden tie.
Yeah, that's the sash of Rassilon. That's every president wears that.
I know, I'm just joking. But yeah, no, I mean, don't have any opinions. I don't really know who this is. Sounds boring. So either ancient or penchant for pomposity, I'm okay with.
I put him between the Emperor and Adelphi.
Okay.
But speaking of presidents, Pandora, the first female president of the Time Lords, and one of the worst ones ever. She declared herself Imperiatrix, and she tried to drive Gallifrey into a dark age of war and conquest, imprisoned in the Matrix, and then came back millions of years later in Romana's head, and basically jump-started another Time Lord civil war. And basically, she ravaged Gallifrey with the Dogma virus. But yeah, she did a lot of bad, but it wasn't because she was a badly written character. She was a really good villain.
Yeah, and I remember how complex she was, even though she was bad. I've always found her interesting. I'm gonna make a push and say S tier.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I mean, for the Gallifrey series, I'd say she's an S tier villain, but looking at the other characters on this list, okay? If you want to go S tier, I'm with you, but I don't think she should go too high on that list. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, because it's either that or top of Funny Hats, and I don't think you want to dislodge the daughter. So,
yeah, and I'm just gonna make a quick change here because if I found a better name for the F tier: decadent, degenerate, and rotten to the core. That's what I call the F tier of Time Lords right now. And speaking of rotten to the core, Quensis. He was, let me just see if I can get this name right, the 422nd Kithriarch, which is basically like the head of the House of Longborough, the house where the Doctor was sorted into, or rather loomed into, whichever way you want to call it. He really saw a lot of potential in the Doctor early on and really felt like the Doctor had a lot of potential. He wanted the Doctor to succeed him, but really turned on him when the Doctor decided to run away and become a renegade. So, yeah.
the Doctor even looks like him a bit, you know?
Yeah, I suppose. Maybe because of how Time Lord looming process goes, there's a very limited genetics, and a lot of Time Lords end up looking the same, which you wouldn't really expect that from a race that can change their faces on a dime, but whatever.
I
So yeah,
mean, I would be okay with the B tier or C tier.
okay. I mean that sounds about right. B tier or C tier. Um,
Uh, Could we do me a favor? Because I do have to leave in 3 minutes. Could we jump to River Song and just put her S tier?
all right, fine. Just let me. I'm gonna put him here, right next to Dionysus. And just for you, we're skipping ahead to River Song. I'm just gonna show these pictures because I really wanted to show these pictures of her and all the other doctors and some of the other masters. Obviously, her as a little girl, and her is Mel's. But yeah, S tier easily. Where though?
Third, above Omicron.
Omega above Omega?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think she's as important to the lore of the show or the franchise as Omega, but she's definitely important to the Doctor.
Well, she's that important to my heart, 50.
Okay, fine. So is the monk for mine, but you shit all over that.
Okay, put her wherever you want, 50. I'll concede.
I mean, I would definitely put her above
Okay.
Braxiatel because
Okay.
even though she's not as old of a character as he is, she has more. I would argue more significance to the Doctor than Braxiatel. I mean, just the fact that the Doctor in the show barely ever mentions him speaks for itself.
All right. Well, 50 and people are watching. I will have to bid you adieu. I do have to go and pick up my daughter at the daycare. So I again do thank you for, and it's about time again. Sorry for taking this long to appear in the show, but I'm all but happy to do so. Until next time, people. Bonsoir.
Thank you. And just in case you're watching this after the fact, just the fact that I even have had you on for 2 hours really warms both my hearts. Sucks what you did to my boy the monk, but whatever. So, oh, you're still here? Oh, of course, he had to have the last laugh. Okay, so since I'm doing this on my own for now, I might even have time to get through all the notes that I've written down. So next we have Varani, also known as Ushas of Miasmagoria, whatever the hell that means. Let's see what I've written down here. I haven't looked at this in a while since I've written it, but ruthless, cold-hearted, heartsid, and brilliant. Former childhood friend of the Doctor and the Master, renegade time lady. She's a neurochemist, second most wanted criminal in the galaxy after the Master, obviously. Conducts illegal and immoral experiments on anyone she can get her hands on. And her fate is currently unknown. I mean, we do know she regenerates thanks to the Big Finish range, but obviously that was mainly because the actress Kate O'Mara passed away like a week or so before they started recording. A couple of weeks. I can't remember how long, but then they obviously had to recast because they really wanted to show this character on the Big Finish range. I think she's an A tier, but we don't really know enough about her because, yeah, she's got very limited appearances on the show, and even more limited appearances on Big Finish. And right now, there's a very complicated rights issues with that character. So I'm gonna say a bit below Narvin and right above the Hermit. This is really I wanted to have more people on here, but I mean, hey, life gets in the way as it usually does. But now we're finally on to whoever ended up being number 42 on our list. I promise I did not plan this. This is like out of nowhere. Somehow this guy ended up being number 42. Lord President Rassilon as the 42nd person here. I mean, he's the first president of Time Lord Society as we know it, one of the founding fathers of Gallifrey, a scientist, an architect, a warmonger, president, hero, whatever you want to call him. Yeah, he's like, he is the granddaddy of Time Lord society. Like, there's really no way to look at it. He's one of the Matrix Lords. Obviously, he continued to run things from behind the scenes, manipulated the Doctor from behind the scenes, but through the Matrix. He was played by Don Warrington, Terrence Hardiman, Richard Armitage, Timothy Dalton, and Donald Sumter, just to name a few. He was he almost killed the Doctor in the Hell Band. He became a Cyberman, first cyber president of Gallifrey. I mean, that's an S tier character right there, through and through. Even more than Omega. Like, seriously, he's like top S tier Time Lord, regardless of how bad he is as a person. Like, he's a major villain, but you cannot overstate, you cannot overlook all the stuff that he did for the lore of the show. But speaking of characters with who were really controversial presidents, Romana Dvoratralund, to be specific. Yeah, she started out as a companion of the Doctor during the Key to Time storyline, then regenerated for reasons that were revealed later. And she became infected with the Pandora virus. She became the president of Time Lords. She was a coordinator of the CIA during the Time War. Allegedly, she regenerated and then undid her regeneration, because apparently that's possible for Time Lords, I guess. But I mean, it's Romana. I would say probably an S tier level character, A tier companion. Again, it's in the same vein as Leela, I would say. A tier character, S tier character, A tier companion, primarily due to the fact that a lot of her storyline was expanded upon after she left the Doctor. After she obviously she left and stuck around in E space for a while, until for some reason she decided to come back into N space, the normal space. Came back to Gallifrey. She was imprisoned by the Daleks for 20 years during the Apocalypse Element debacle, and still came back stronger than ever. I mean, obviously the experience did change her a lot. She became really ruthless and angry, but she was never cruel. She was never angry, and she did a lot of good for Gallifrey. It just so happens that the Time Lords really opposed what she did, because she wanted Gallifrey to be more inclusive, and the Time Lords were like, no, screw that. We don't want inclusivity in Gallifrey. We don't want your progressive liberal way of thinking. Well, what are you doing? So, I mean, I think I've stalled enough time to upload more pictures, and hopefully this is the last time I will need to upload the more pictures. But yeah, Romana, definitely an S tier character. And you know what? I would even put her above Braxiatel, maybe even above Riversong. Again, this is why I don't want to do this on my own. This is why I always have guests when I'm doing these tier ranking lists. But whatever. So next character, you should pick that up. It could be Santa Claus. So yeah, apparently Santa Claus is Gallifreyan in origin. Shocking, am I right? What a surprise. Who would have figured Santa Claus was originally from Gallifrey? Anyways, for the wiki page that I actually read about this guy, I mean, a lot was saying that he's from Gallifrey, but really not a lot of substance to the story. It's just, making Santa Claus a Time Lord for the sake of saying, oh, look, Santa Claus is a Time Lord. Yeah. And I love the Nick Frost portrayal in this episode, in this scene right here, episode. I do not like the episode that much, but I love his portrayal of it. And, Oops, I almost go away, Goth. Go back to your place. But yeah, I would put him definitely above Morbius because I'm stuck with the monk this low. I don't want to put any character above him because he's one of my favorite characters. But then Frenchie came in and crapped all over my face. Anyways, next character is Sokra, a Pridonian chapter CIA member and Chancellor of Pandad IV, presided over the Second Doctor's trial as well as the Warlords. Was in communication with Rassilon through the Matrix. Monitored the Third Doctor during the Doomsday Weapon affair and the first Omega Crisis. Convinced Pandad the Fourth to lift the Doctor's exile, and he was eaten alive by the Ronnie's giant rats. I don't know how significant that is to his character, but I mean, he's a very generic Time Lord character. But I think the fact that he actually convinced Rassilon to release the Doctor from his exile, that should at least put him above Santa Claus as a character, right? Now, one of my favorite Castellans, and I think actually the first Castellan character we do get to see in the show, Castellan Spandrel from the Deadly Assassin storyline. Yeah, he was one of the few people who were actually on the Doctor's side, even though all evidence should have gone to the contrary. Like a lot of the presumed evidence showed him that the Doctor was guilty. He was one of the few who was actually willing to listen to the Doctor, and that he's the main reason the Doctor managed to clear his name by the end. He really helped the Doctor get into the Matrix. He actually protected him while he was in the Matrix when that other Time Lord was going to pull him out. He shot him with a staser. So yeah, he saved the Doctor, but unfortunately, we only see him for one episode. So I wish they didn't do that with a lot of Time Lord characters. But I mean that's all you can have. That's all we get. So really solid character, but unfortunately the lack of appearances probably put him right next to Professor Chronotis for me personally. Another character we got to see a lot of, Susan Foreman. And again, this is another part that I wish I had guests on, but whatever. So she was the Doctor's granddaughter, potentially a granddaughter of the other, who was then later adopted by the first Doctor, which the Doctor is technically the other in one way or another. But I mean, to me personally, I've said this multiple times on this show and various other places. I am not the biggest fan of Susan as a character. I like what they do with her on Big Finish, maybe because she doesn't scream as often as she did when she was on the show. But I mean, yeah, the fact that she came back during the Time War and tried to help score an alliance between the Time Lords and the Sensorites, that's good. I mean, her son, Alex Campbell, is basically the Doctor's grandson. But I mean, yeah, I think she should get some praise for being the first companion, but that doesn't really make her a good Time Lord. And here's another thing people realize: she can't regenerate because she's from the old times of Gallifrey. That's why she made it all the way to being to an old woman, because she physically can't regenerate, because regeneration was basically just starting when her and the other left, and then the Doctor came back and took her with him. So she's technically Gallifreyan, not technically Time Lord. So I'd say right next to her original grandfather, the other. I'd say that's a good place to put her. Now, speaking of the other, Tecteun. I mean, Ingle mentioned her a bunch of times. We got several different versions of Tecteun. Not enough, I would say, but I mean, she basically was the third member of the oops, I deleted the picture. Never mind. She was basically the third founding father of Gallifrey. Well, I mean, yeah, she was a man at the time, so yeah, the founding fathers of Gallifrey actually makes sense. But I mean, she was a an explorer. She found the timeless child. She cracked the code of regeneration, and basically regeneration kind of came from her slash him. Maybe in this picture, maybe she was that woman from the end of time. Maybe she wasn't. I don't know. Maybe she was that woman from Hellbent from the barn. A lot of potential with this character, but unfortunately, we didn't really get to know that much about her. I'm looking forward to learning more about her, but just for being who that character is and what she did to the lore, I would say right next to Andred, like high on the A tier. Again, I wish I didn't have to do this on my own, but it is what it is. Another one of my favorite characters, Lord Tepish, a Time Lord vampire. Very rarely we get to see one of those, but I mean, he was one of the people who were opposed to Rassilon in the early days of Time Lord Society, broke into the Rassilon's foundry. We mostly know him from the Zagreus storyline, but again, it's another character I wish we knew more about. I think is a very fascinating character. I wish we could go back and explore that era of Time Lord of Gallifrey even further. But I mean, for now, I guess Zagreus is all we have with this character. But still, I love the artwork that they made for all the different aspects of the Doctor from that story. But yeah, again, character I wish we knew more of. Just the bit that we do get from him was fascinating in my opinion. Next, jumping onto the U's, because we're going alphabetically, Urizen, or Urizen, again, I never know. I mean, it's a comic book character, so we can't really know how to pronounce it. But yeah, Urizen, the architect, officially the first president of the Great Houses before they called themselves Time Lords, allegedly deposed by Rassilon, worshipped as a god on several planets, the embodiment of reason and law in some mythologies, and he's one of the Matrix Lords seen in some of the comic books with the Fifth Doctor. Again, character we wish we knew more about, but I mean the fact that he was the first proper president of the Great Houses is enough for me. I would say put him right in the middle of the B tier. And again, I wish I had someone to argue that point, but that's all I get. Chancellor Valiez, or the character who was retroactively known as Chancellor Valiez. He was mainly a prominent character in the Gallifrey series. Opposed Romana. I think we talked about him last week with me and Snark, where he was the second in command to Lord Matthias when they had that big rotating door of presidents, where one minute Pandora was the president, then Lord Matthias was the president, then Valiez was the president, then Braxitel was the president, left unconscious by the dogma virus, and then when Romana and Narvin and Leela and K9 and Braxitel were off exploring different alternate Gallifreys, trying to find a cure for the dogma virus, they came back and he was the exact same character he was at that moment. And then Narvin sent him back in time to Genesis of the Daleks, and that's what really ended up starting up the Time War in the first place. That, I mean, again, for years they've wondered who this character was, and then they sort of confirmed it. But I think his inclusion in Genesis of the Daleks is good, but yeah, he was a pretty bad character. He was a very two-faced manipulative character. So I would even put him below Sorkra, maybe even below Morbius and above Flavia. I think that's a good place to put him. I seem to have forgotten one of the characters. So let me just. Okay, where's the edit button? I think, yeah, go back to normal view. We got this one character called, where is she? Veclin. Yeah, she's a very generic character. Like, she's Cardinal Illustra's right-hand woman. And really that's it. That's all she wrote. She's ruthless. She's very violent, and very loyal to Cardinal Illustra, both Cardinal Illustras. But beyond that, really not much going for her. So yeah, as I brought back the image, pretend you didn't see that. Yeah, Veclin, very very generic, but I would probably put her above Hedin and below Goth. Now, a character I want to know more about, but I'm actually scared to know more about, Iris Wildtime. Uh, okay, this character is pretty wild, just like her name suggests. Let me see what I've written down here because I really am curious to see what was going through my head when I made this note list. Okay, also known as Lilith, she's a self-styled transtemporal adventuress, a woman of mysterious origin from a noble house of aunts, not cousins like most Time Lords in Gallifrey's lower hemisphere. She did not live her own life in the correct order and met the Doctors out of sequence. Stop me if you've heard that before. Uh, she travels through time and space in a sentient TARDIS shaped like a double decker bus and has a panda for a companion. Uh, Really weird character, definitely verging on the obscure. Hold on, there's one thing I really want to. Yeah, so obviously she's in that image. She's primarily played by Katie Manning, who also played the character of uh, Joe Grant slash Joe Jones. But yeah, it's a really big part of her character that she basically every time she regenerates into different famous actresses. Most notably, I have the list on the other side. Edith Sitwell, um, Shirley Bassey. I'm trying to do these in order, even though she wouldn't. Um, Beryl Reed. Hold on. Jane Fonda. Where is it? A potential fifth one that never actually happened. We never got to see. I guess. Uh, there's the where is it? The Katie Manning variant, and what was the last one? I'm nailing this when I'm doing this on my own. See why I always have guests now because I can't do this on my own. Yeah, Margaret Rutherford. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. And another potential Iris Wildtime we never got to see. She's a wild, crazy character. Don't know much about her because of the obscurity of the medium that she appears in. I've only listened to a few Big Finish releases from her, but she's wild. She's crazy. She's everything that the Doctor wishes he would be. I would say above the 11. Maybe if I knew more stories about her, I would put her in the S tier. But the final character, and the reason he's at the bottom is mainly because he technically doesn't appear on the list of Time Lords. But you know what? I saw that and I said, screw the hell out of that. K9, the Doctor's friend and constant companion. I mean, technically we had two K9s on Gallifrey, the K9 Mark 1 and K9 Mark 2. Mark 1 was left with Leela, and the Mark 2 was left with Romana. And, well, first of all, K9, S tier level character. No questions about that. We had several versions of him. We had him with Sarah Jane Smith, another version with Sarah Jane Smith. He actually regenerated at one point or another, became a different design, which I hate. I do not like that design. And he's from that other K9 spin-off show that I never actually watched, but maybe I will one day. But I mean, even though it's a robot dog made by a human, he has just as much right to be on a list of Time Lords as anybody. And you know what? Even more than some of these characters, because he actually did fought against Pandora. and he was basically, even though there was two of them, he was kind of a double agent. I was definitely put him above Pandora, right next to Leela. And I wish they could put Leela, Romana, and K9 together in one place, but that's really all you get. But yeah, this is the tier list for the different Time Lords. Again, technical difficulties being what they are, real life gets in the way a lot. Unfortunately, we only had Chris Engel for about an hour and um, Frenchie for about two. But the fact that I had them for as long as I did, I'm honored to. I was honored to have both of them on for this show. Again, I kind of feared that I would eventually have to do this on my own. There were a lot of other guests I wanted to bring on, but unfortunately, they were unavailable or they just wouldn't respond to my hails to use a Star Trek reference. But here we are. How do I put? Hold on. Yeah, there we go. So this market right here, this is the final list that eventually the last couple of ones I put on my own. But yeah, this is the list of Time Lords that we have today. Take a snapshot and memorize it for the rest of eternity because that is the end of the show tonight. Obviously, you can find Chris Ingle on his channel. I want one of these days I gotta pick up the. I need to figure out where his channel is so they can bring him up at the end of each episode of this show for the plug section. I am doing a show with him later tonight, a Star Trek show on his channel. But by that point, by the time this episode comes out, I already would have done it. But that is a story for another time. So yeah, check out Chris Ingle whenever possible. Maybe I'll leave a link to his channel after this episode is uploaded. But you can find Frenchie on this channel right here. The Northern Entertainment Group YouTube channel, as well as various other shows, part of the Benverse. I believe he's on the Multiverse of Geekdom whenever he has time to appear. And one of these days, I really should get his plugs so I can reference him there as well. Speaking of the Multiverse of Geekdom, a lot of our good friends are there with Dawn and Midnight and Joe and a few other people keeping the legacy of our good friend Ben Rayner alive, who sadly passed away at the end of last year. My other good friend Taco does a lot of really great things on his channel, Something to Taco About. And you can also find me on my channel, 50 Shades of Geek. I do weekly reviews of every Doctor Who episode from 1963 all the way to 2022. And you can also find my good friend Soda on I think the Blokes of Wrestling is no more on this channel, but he also appears on the Blokes of Wrestling is the LGR Network show. The Squared Slice was the show on this channel that was canceled. I really got to ask him again, but yeah, he can also be found doing a show with me every week called Fun with Flags, which is uploaded every Thursday on this channel, and also on this channel a live show called Have You Seen This, with a regular to this show Snark and his two good friends Dave and Daniel. And I think that's more or less it. And yeah, I'll just wrap up this very, very troublesome and wibbly wobbly timey wimey episode by showing off my new sonic screwdriver. And yeah, thank you for watching. If you have, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on the channel, and let us know which Time Lords you like and which Time Lords you would put at the top of the S tier, and why the monk was screwed by Frenchie during this show. Thank you for watching if you have, and I will see you next month for a month focusing primarily on the Master. See you then.